You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Sunday, September 15th. I have no words for what I just witnessed, but actually I do have many words for what I just witnessed. So joining me, as always, on a post-game, Adam. Adam, hey, man. I knew that the 49ers have had some very weird games in Minnesota. I don't know if they have a curse on them dating back to 1992, but that's the last time the 49ers have won in Minnesota. That still stands today. And just from the beginning of this game, it just felt sloppy. It just felt weird. It just felt not 49ers brand of football. And of course, as we've seen in the score, it came out to be that way, 17-23. It could have been way, way worse, honestly, the score in this game. But what were your, I guess, like high-level takeaways on this one?
Yeah, too many mistakes, right? Like you can't have a block punt ever in the NFL. Like they were lucky to only have that cost them 3 points, right? And you also can't have your quarterback throw essentially two interceptions. Costly times in the game where the Niners were in it, trying to come back, and it just didn't pan out the way they wanted to, right? That first interception was on Brock. It was late. It's over the middle when you're living dangerously over the middle, right? And this is the double-edged sword. Like Brock is probably the best in the league at those intermediate level throws. But why? What do defenses do in the NFL? They are going to make you drive all the way down the field and give you every opportunity to make a mistake, right? If you're defenses will live with 10, 12 play scoring drives, right? Because that's 10 to 12 plays where they have an opportunity to turn the ball over. I know as a defensive coach, that was our philosophy as well. We want to make teams drive the length of the field so we can give guys like Fred Warner opportunities to punch the ball out. Let's tip a ball. Let's get a pick. Let's get a takeaway. If we win the takeaway battle 87% of the time, at least at our level of ball, at JC ball, you'd win. You'd probably win the game. And I'm sure that's the same way at the NFL level. So yeah, too many mistakes all the way around. Like you said, not 49ers brand of football. Looked like a team on a short week, first road game of the year. Some people not really handling it well. A lot of defensive mistakes too. So all around, not the best game for sure.
And I couldn't help but notice that, the Jets were playing Tennessee today. The Jets actually won at Tennessee, but it was a close game. So I came away looking at that one and I'm like, maybe the Jets are just terrible. And maybe the 49ers were going into this game with some, false encouragement by that game, just how strong they looked. Maybe how good the 49ers defense looked in week one. It wasn't real because there were so many times in this game, Adam, that I was just like, what are they doing? I know we kind of talked about it, on Twitter, that it just seemed like there was a lot of miscommunication clearly on the bomb to Justin Jefferson earlier in the game, 97 yards or something like that. There seemed to be some miscommunication. For one, it was George Odom that lined up across from Justin Jefferson on that one. And then Jair Brown just playing that one a little too close to the line or early in that game, just wasn't too enough far back for that one to make an impact. And obviously he doesn't have the speed to catch up to Justin Jefferson on that one. It was just very odd. And there were not just that play, it was several plays where it just looked like there was some miscommunication. Guys didn't know where they were supposed to be lining up. Guys thought the other guy was supposed to be guarding that guy. And that's how you had like a lot of wide open men for the Vikings in this game. And credit to Sam Darnold. Like I've been like making fun of Sam Darnold this entire week. It was just the Giants last week. He's going to throw a pick. He did throw a pick, but he was throwing some lasers out there, man. And he was putting it on his receivers and making some great throws. I talk about the ones that were wide open, but man, Sam Darnold was putting it on a rope on some of these throws. So I have to give credit to him for what he did do in this game because he looked good. But as far as the miscommunication of the defense on much of, these plays, the secondary, it was a head scratcher. So like, did you kind of notice that as well in this one?
Big time. And it's really like as far as defensive football goes, a lot of, I don't want to say basic mistakes, but mistakes I've seen many, many times from defenses at all levels. Basically, what Minnesota was trying to do here was they were running a lot of condensed formations. We would call at our level a stack. They would stack one receiver on top of the other. What this does is makes it hard for a defense to play press coverage, right? Which the Niners are obviously very good at. They have two incredible corners. You get them pressed up, they're going to probably win that matchup. So how do you free your $30+ million big time wide receiver? You get him in the bunch and you try to confuse the defense, right? And what we know, like from me being in the DB room so many times, we know that when they go into a stack, what do they generally want to do? They want to disperse, right? So they want to confuse you with the routes, and then they're going which way and the other. And then from a coverage standpoint, I would say 90% of the time you're playing some kind of handoff football where it's really, we called it, not to get too in the weeds here, but we called it 87 technique where, hey, I got first thing in as the corner. Hey, safety, you got first, as the corner, first thing out, safety, first thing in. So usually if you got the stack, you got the corner and the safety kind of playing out wide, waiting for them to figure themselves out, right? But it's a lot of trust. Takes a lot of communication, a lot of reps, a lot of practice, and it's easy for things to go wrong. But there's not really a great alternative to kind of defending it because the other thing you can do is press the point, right? Get a jam on the point, have that guy, follow the receiver on the line, and then you kind of play it off from there. But, there was a lot of mistakes in communication on just that concept alone. They would run it over and over. I mean, the touchdown pass right after the Purdy interception near the red zone was the same kind of deal. They lined up the receiver inside of the box. And that, again, it's on the defense to sort those things out. You saw the corner and Jair Brown bite on the low breaking route. Nobody covers it up top, and it's just another miscommunication. So nothing that can't be fixed, Steph, for sure. You can chalk that up to an early season mistake. And when you're in second game of a season with live bullets, like that thing's going to happen. But at the rate at which it's happening, from my experience, I would say it's a bit alarming.
It was definitely alarming, especially kind of late in the game when Justin Jefferson exited. Obviously, Jordan Addison, their second wide receiver, out of this game. Like, he didn't even play. So in the end of this game, you had Vikings moving down the field at will without two of their top receivers. And like I said, Sam Darnold was playing well. So let me just go through some stats from this game, if I may. The Vikings converted 7 third downs in this game. Remember, that was an issue for the 49ers last season where they just could not get off the field on third down. That looked like an issue again in this game. They also gave up 403 yards, 7.5 yards per play given up to the Vikings, 8.6 yards per pass, as well as 6.1 yards per rush given up to the Vikings. Like, that's crazy. They did kind of shut down Aaron Jones a little bit. Like, he didn't have that many rushing yards, but Ty Chandler, he had 10 carries, 82 yards. So whenever they were trying to change things up and Chandler was in the game, they really struggled with him. And I think we saw a lot of those like outside runs, break for some big gains for the Vikings. So that was concerning too, because I think we were starting to see some issues that the 49ers dealt with last season kind of come back and bite the 49ers once again in this game. I know the 49ers at times did get some pressure on Darnold. I know Nick Bosa, for example, had 2 sacks, so that was great to see. But overall, I felt like this pass rush could have done better in this game. I mean, I do have to give credit for Sam Darnold. I think there were a few times he did like move around in the pocket pretty well and made that a little difficult. He also used his legs a couple times, which gashed the 49ers. But still, I did feel like there could have been more from the 49ers defensive line as far as the pass rush goes.
I completely agree. And this is a thought I really had throughout the game today. As a defensive coach, I taught pass rush, right? Like I coached outside backers. I work with pass rushers every single day. I've trained all like really talented guys, right? And learned from really good coaches. Um, I will take 0 sacks in a game, but the quarterback is uncomfortable every single play.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
don't think that's like a surprising thing to say, but that's what's really the most important to me is like, does the quarterback look comfortable? Right? Is the pass rush affecting his game? Is he having to move out of the way, sidestep? Is it affecting the play, leading to incompletions, leading to turnovers? I will take that all day. And I think if you go way back to a game against the Cowboys in the playoffs, I believe it was 2021. That was the Eric Armstead game, right? I don't even know if Bosa was playing, but if you looked at that game and look how disruptive Armstead was in the middle of that pocket, right? Dak couldn't step up in the pocket, and he was under fire, under siege, getting sacked. That is how you take over a game as a defensive line, right? Now the sacks came with that, but again, I felt like I wouldn't say the pass rush was non-existent. I thought they were at times getting in his grill a little
At
bit.
times, yeah.
But I agreed, like, there was definitely a little bit to be desired, and too many plays at the wrong times he looked comfortable, including the 97-yard touchdown pass, right? Now, listen, as a defense, you're probably not, like, as a defensive line in the mindset of stopping the 97-yard bomb on whatever down it was at the 3-yard line. You're probably in a wider stance trying to stop the run, right? Your mindset is not, hey, I'm going to pin the ears back and I'm going to go get it, narrow the stance. I'm going to go get the QB. Now, if it's 3rd and long, different story. So I would probably hold the defense's feet to the fire a little bit more there. But it makes sense. It was a great play call. Listen, we got to tip our cap to the Vikings here. They proved today, that coaching staff proved that they are a very good coaching staff. They're a very good team. I was very impressed with their defense. They played smart football. Darnold, I always thought he had the arm talent, and he really put it together today. Helps when you have Justin Jefferson, really makes you look good at that, right? But they're a good football team. I think today, like, let's not get anything twisted. The Vikings are looking like a team that is going to be pushing for a playoff spot, especially with the Packers, Jordan Love's injury and whatnot. Obviously, they have the Lions to deal with, but I don't think they're insurmountable. So they lost to a good football team, and the Niners did not play their best brand of football.
Yeah, through 2 games, the Vikings do look legit at this point. And for the 49ers, now I'm back to not being so sure like what this team is, what they're going to look like going forward. But you hit the nail on the head. I do think that the 49ers were outcoached. Simply put, like there's no way around it. Brian Flores, Kevin O'Connell put on a masterclass, I thought, against the 49ers. Now, on the other side, I think the 49ers put on a disaster class against the Vikings. So let's talk about the 49ers offense in this game, because much is being said about that. This is not the first time that I've seen people in this game commenting on Twitter, all that, saying they weren't pleased with the play calling in this game. Now, I don't know if I really agree with that. I know that the offense definitely underperformed in this game, but I think my eyes are on Brock Purdy, man, because look, Jordan Mason, he was running well. I know early on in the game, it kind of felt like they were going away from the run. What I kind of thought the 49ers were doing in that case were just trying to keep the Vikings honest, trying to move the ball with some passes, trying to keep the Vikings from loading the box early in the game, maybe then balance out. But yeah, Jordan Mason did well, 100 yards on the ground. That's a positive from this. But Brock Purdy, I thought just missed some plays that were there, and he didn't look comfortable in this game. Even when he had time to throw, he didn't look comfortable in this game. And there were a lot of plays where, like, I think on early downs, it seemed like the Vikings were, maybe rushing with just 4 guys and having everyone else back in coverage. And so you see Brock in a clean pocket and you think to yourself, okay, he's going to find someone. But a lot of times he wouldn't, because I think, the Vikings were putting a lot of resources into their coverage, and it worked. So then they'd get into these third downs, whether it be third and long, third and short. And then the Vikings could pin their ears back and really go after Brock and blitz and all those things. So that was kind of what I saw from the Vikings defense in this game. And I feel like it kind of messed with Purdy, just like it did last season in that Week 7 game. Brian Flores' defense, definitely a challenge for Brock Purdy, and kind of a similar stat line in which he had a touchdown and an interception last year against this defense as well. So it looked a little bit different. I know Purdy threw for 300 yards. That was more out of necessity than anything, but definitely didn't feel like Brock Purdy was comfortable in this game. Also, a lot of near picks in this one. I know it could have been way worse for Brock Purdy. I kind of feel like this was one of his worst games easily.
I agree. And I tweeted that out as well. I had the same thought. I just, you could say, oh, well, he had 4 picks in the Ravens game. But listen, you really look and dissect those interceptions. One of those was an egregious interception. The other 3 were just, I wouldn't call it totally on Brock, right? I thought the rest of those 3 picks were not like bad decisions. Today, he was making some bad decisions for sure. And there were some forced footballs. I got the sense he was a little uncomfortable today as well. I just felt I wish Shanahan rolled him out a little more, got him out in space. Let's get him on it, using his legs, moving around, improvising a little bit. Because whether you like it or not, like sitting in that pocket, which was not always clean. I thought early on.
Early on it was fine.
Right? But as the game went on, the Vikings pass rush seemed to wear down the offensive line. And that really affected Brock. And I think I love Brock Purdy as a quarterback, but there are some 7th round traits that kind of show themselves at times. The size, right? He's not as tall as other quarterbacks. You see a couple balls batted down, right? The arm strength. And for me, the biggest concern about the Niners offense, and this goes back to last season. I think last season you just had so many talented cats with CMC, Brandon Ayuk playing out of his mind and whatnot. I have not looked at the tape. Nobody has. But if I were to guess, I feel like downfield, they're not getting the separation that they so desire, right? I think that's the one drawback of this passing game is I'm sure, obviously Brandon Ayuk's a great separator. I'm looking at his routes. I just don't feel like they're as crisp as last
rusty,
year.
Man.
It just looks rusty. It looks like he missed training camp. And listen, I know from going through a lot of camps myself, if our number 1 wide receiver missed all of camp, it's going to affect him, right? And just comes back week 1, it's going to affect him in some way, somehow. So I just don't feel like he's running routes as crisp. And that matters, right? I think like the strength of this team is yards after catch. So when they get the ball in their hand, like it's really crazy disruptive. But to get the ball in your hand, you got to create separation so Brock throws you the football, right? So I just like they're getting a little older too. Even Kittle, right? Still really good production, but you can just feel it kind of slow down, right? And you're watching these routes develop downfield, and I'm just not seeing I'm not seeing their change of direction put fear in the DB's eyes. I don't think they're scared downfield either, right? Like we're talking about that 3rd level. Okay, yeah, really good with the intermediate stuff, those chunk 20-yard catches, which is great. You can live off that. But I would like to see a little bit more of a downfield threat, at least a deep shot. You have to take shots. You do. And it's from a morale standpoint. It's from we're going to make the defense nervous standpoint, because the last thing you want is DBs getting comfortable. It's a mental game. It's 100% mental. They're all freak athletes, but it's all about, do they have the headspace to cover these dudes every single play? And so when you're not taking those shots downfield, when you're kind of leaving them comfortable, they're driving on you, but hey, we'll bend, but don't break. Listen, when Darnold takes the top off of you from the 3-yard line with Justin Jefferson, and you look at the replay and you look at the explosion out of his route at the top, that is best in class. That is world-class. That's a world-class deep route by Justin Jefferson. Not anybody can do that. Very few guys can do that. That's why he gets that crazy money, because no matter what you do, there's not, I mean, they could have triple teamed in there. He looked faster than all two of those dudes that were covering him, right? And there's just such a small margin for her. But I feel so bad for safeties. I feel for Jair, right? Because I've been there. I've seen a safety make that same mistake. And it's just one little hesitation, because as a safety, you're never going to be faster than any of the wide receivers on the field. If you were, you'd be a corner, right? So he makes that one hesitation, and then it's just curtains. And that really sucks the air and the confidence out of a DB room on the bench. So would love, hopefully, like as the season goes on, they prove me wrong, but I think that that's going to end up being a little bit of a problem from them for the Niners going forward.
Yeah, and I did see people, kind of sharing their opinion that they thought this was one of Mooney Ward's worst games as a Niner. I'll have to watch the tape and see what was going on there. I don't know if I can say that definitively, but definitely, people say things in a loss like this. And what I do agree with is the stuff about Brandon Ayuk. I mean, yeah, it's definitely concerning. I think we expected it, right? We definitely expected this, which is why we always get so pissed at the 49ers and historically taking a long time with these deals, because it does end up hurting the team at the end of the day. This is hurting the team. Another thing is, obviously Christian McCaffrey, the loss of him is being felt because, look, Jordan Mason, he's great, but he doesn't present the same threat to the defenses, especially on third downs as a dump off option as Christian McCaffrey does. There's just a level of respect that Christian McCaffrey has around the league that defenses are going to respect. They're going to move guys over, and he's going to draw a lot of attention. He has an orbit to him. Jordan Mason doesn't have an orbit to him, at least not yet. Maybe he could get up to that point in these next few weeks, but I think that's what was missing too for the 49ers. I think that kind of messed with Brock Purdy as well in this game, as well as the obvious Brandon Ayuk kind of missing in this game. Debo, I know we talk about Debo as a separator, he's not that great. Playing against this Vikings defense that plays a lot of zone, I was expecting a pretty big game from Debo, which he did have 100 yards. And he was catching some tough passes over the middle too. He had to leap up and get a couple of those. I thought Kittle played a good game too. By the way, Kittle, 100th game today. Would have liked it to be a win, obviously, but he did pass Rob Gronkowski for 5th in catches by a tight end in first 100 games. So that was cool. He needed 6 catches to do it. He got that and a little bit more. But yeah, there's just something odd about this team on both sides of the ball. I don't know how much of it we can really chalk up to it being early body clock game on the road. It's Minnesota. Obviously they struggle there. I don't know. So next week it's going to be back to the drawing board. And Viking Jerome, who's back here in the live chat, he's been on my live chats a couple of videos this week, and he did say the Vikings were going to win this game. Congrats, Viking Jerome. Yes, you were right on this one. It was a crazy game. It was a crazy game. For some reason, the 49ers just cannot win in Minnesota, so that will continue for them. But yeah, definitely a forgettable one for the 49ers in this one. And the good thing, I did see this. Kyle Shanahan said there were no injuries from this game, so that's a positive. I know there were some scares in this one. George Kittle gets carted off to the locker room. He just needed an IV. He went back to the game after that. And then also there was a scare with Nick Bosa, kind of had his ankle rolled up on. He returned to the game as well, so he's okay. But we'll see in the coming days what happens, because as we know, sometimes those things can flare up the day after. But for now, no injuries. That's a positive. So the 49ers going to have to go into next week, right? And hopefully put together a win. Now they're 1-1. They're going to be playing against the Rams, who have yet to play their week 2 game. But that's obviously going to be a way more interesting game now, because just seeing how the 49ers looked in this one, the NFC is starting to take shape in ways that I don't think a lot of us were expecting, but in these first 2 weeks of the season. But man, what a What a game. What a game for the 49ers. I'm trying to see if there's anything else from Kyle Shanahan. Let me just take a peek here at the presser, some notes. So Kyle Shanahan was also asked about Christian McCaffrey and his return timetable. Kyle Shanahan said, quote, "Nobody knows we're dealing with tendonitis." And of course, some of the reports from Ian Rappaport this morning were that it could take up to 6 weeks, maybe even longer than that. I know, obviously, him placed on IR, it's at least 4 weeks or 4 games that he's going to miss, but it seems like it could be more than that. So, yeah, Jordan Mason, it's going to be his time in the backfield for a lot longer. But yeah, hopefully in the coming weeks, 49ers offense could really get going. Because quite honestly, even in the first game, I know they put up 32 points, but even in the first game, the offense wasn't even clicking really in that one. 20 points in that one came from Jake Moody. So let me ask you about one more thing, right? We saw Kyle Shanahan go for it on 4th down more than we usually do. He went for it 3 times, but only converted on one of those. I've been begging for Kyle Shanahan to be more aggressive. So when he is, I can't then take it back and be like, why didn't he just like do this? Or like, I can't. Yes, he could have ran the ball on those. I think most of them he went for the pass. But I wanted him to be more aggressive. So I feel like I can't really critique too much on the play call there, although I would have liked to see Jordan Mason, but I'm happy that he went for it on 4th down. I'm happy that he was aggressive. Maybe it didn't work out for them, but that's the kind of trust that I want Kyle Shanahan to have in his offense, in his play calling. So that was kind of nice to see.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a feel thing. In my personal opinion. To me, I think the first 2 4th down, when he went for it on those first 2 4th down plays, I agreed with it. I think the moment was right, especially it's made to order in the goal. When you're near the goal line, you're inside the 5. Like the statistics say you should go for it on 4th and goal. Cause at worst, you pin the other offense back. There's a very low chance of them scoring. Of course, they throw a 97-yard touchdown, but that's not the best, of course. But I agree with the decision, right? And Juwan was open. Like if that ball doesn't get tipped, it is a touchdown.
Yes,
and that's just kind of how the game went, right? Early in the drive, they go for it between the 40s, right? Between the 40 and 50. Stats say you should go for it there. I thought the last time they went, or the time after that, I can't recall exactly what happened on the play, but they went for it. And I don't know if Brock was stopped short. I think he scrambled or something like that. But I didn't like it there just because I felt like the defense was reeling. And this is the defensive coach of me, right? Like you have to understand, defensive coaches just tend to be more practical. Like they just tend to play more percentages. They just tend to, it's just the truth. And offensive coaches are a little more riverboat gambler. And he kind of saw it there, but I just felt like, okay, if my defense just gave up a 97-yard touchdown, I'm going to want to put them in a good spot. It's a 1-score game where we can keep this thing close. They're not going to give up another 97-yard touchdown. I have to believe that, right? So I thought that was an emotional decision there. But again, that's not where I'm going to put the eggs in the basket. That's not where I'm going to have my grief today. It's the farthest thing from it. That's just a feel thing to me, right? That's my specific style. That's my opinion. Of all the things today, that's not what I'm going to say, hey, this is what I'm most mad about. So I do think a lot of being a head coach is feel. And one thing I will say that I think a lot of people don't realize, but being an offensive coordinator and a head coach, it takes a toll on you, right? Like you can't do the head coach duties you would if you were not the head offensive coordinator, because you're too dialed in on the offense. Right. You're dialed in, you're calling the next play even before the play that's happened in front of you even happens. Right. And so that is going to cause you to not be as good on clock management, as good on the little minutia of being a head coach, including, I think, when you have the offensive coordinator hat on and you have that area to go for it on 4th down, I think that's where a head coach would step in and be like, hey, let's play it smart. Like, let's let cooler heads prevail. Let's kick the ball. Let's put our defense in a good spot to win. So, I have to call out the emotion, like the emotional side there, because as a defensive coach, that's what we do. But at the end of the day, it's not the end all be all. Won't be going forward. But one other little thing that did rub me the wrong way, you could say.
One last thing, and this time I'm serious. One last thing
Hey,
before
we can
we
go all day. I'll talk all
right.
day.
I know after a loss, there's so much to dissect. We'll spend a lot of this week doing that. But just before we go, special teams, right? The blocked punt, and then Jacob Cowing, obviously a rookie, but one that we were excited to see in punt return duty. He muffs one, and it was supposed to be on a fair catch. And luckily, the 49ers were able to recover it. But that is a concern for me going forward, because we've seen this with young guys before. Ronnie Bell last season had similar troubles. And once you start getting in your head, and once something like that happens to you for a young player, there's a word inflappable, right? You become flappable when you muff a punt or a return, right? So that's what I'm worried about with Jacob Cowing. Yes, he looked good in the preseason. He looked good in camp. But when something like that happens in real game action, it could, just affect something up here, right? So I'm nervous about that. I wonder if the 49ers do call up Trent Taylor at some point this week, because Trent Taylor is not exciting as a returner, as we know, but he's reliable. He will catch it. So I'll wait to see what happens this week. But obviously, special teams continues to be just something like on the back burner for this team. Like, they just can't be good on special teams. And so I hate to see that continue. Jake Moody now looking like the lone bright spot for the special teams unit.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought, right? He's continued to look great. But yeah, listen, the block punt, somebody missed their block there. It's pro style punting right there at the college level. You see a lot of shield, what they call the shield, the three players in front. So not as many in the offensive line. Somebody misses their block. And that's easily correctable, I think, going forward. As far as like the return game, it's so mental, right? Like, you, as a coach, you watch these guys every day in practice catch punts, right? They work it every day. And you can just tell the ones that are a little bit more confident than the guy next to him. Like, when they catch the ball, they catch it a certain way. They catch it with a certain level of confidence, right? I think, like, I always was a proponent of receivers catching punts. People with the best hands should be catching punts. And I think, like, again, this is my practical defensive mind here. Punts, like, we're not probably going to score a touchdown on a punt. We're probably not even going to get a return off here. The biggest priority is the guy with the best hands, catch the dang ball, make the right decision, put our offense in a good position to go score points, right? And so we'll see what happens. I think you got to give him a strike, like it's a one strike policy, right? If he muffs again, obviously now we have a problem. But when you're a rookie, you're going to have those nerves no matter what way you slice it. And you saw it there. You are who you are. I think, like, I say that more than anybody, as especially when I was coaching. You are who you are. You see what they are in practice, and there's no surprises during the game, right? Now in the NFL, it might be a little different, because I'm going to be honest, I never coached in the NFL, but I would imagine when you're in practice and there's not 80,000 fans screaming at you, it's a little different, right?
Exactly.
That was an alarming way to muff a punt, right? It's not like he caught it, got smacked, or it was just a slight, like, that was a full on muff, right? Full on. I think the broadcast did say, like, maybe he lost it in the rafters a little bit or something like that.
Yeah, because, like, US Bank Stadium has, like, the clear window up top on half of the stadium. So maybe there was some sun coming through there. I don't know. Maybe there was a glare. I don't know. That was their assumption. But regardless of what the reason was, and if there was a reason at all, like that is going to be in the back of his mind the next time he goes to return a punt. So that's my concern. Is it going to become a mental thing? Hopefully it doesn't turn into that, but something to keep an eye on in the coming weeks. But Adam, thank you so much for joining me as always on a post game. Hey, Viking Jerome, thank you so much. I mean, for the donation, that does make me feel a little bit better.
Viking fans are real nice. Let me tell you.
They're real nice over there in Minnesota. So enjoy the win, Viking Jerome, and also like this video. That goes for all the 49er fans who are watching. Trust me, you're not mad at me. You're mad at the 49ers. So like this video anyway. Don't take it out on me. All right. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. Like I said, going to be just dissecting this game every which way throughout the week. So make sure you guys tune into that. Hit that notification bell so you know when I go live later this week. But for now, have a good rest of your Sunday, folks, as much as you can. But for now, peace.